Well, another week and yet another loss in astounding fashion for the Cincinnati Bengals. Glad you're with us here on Inside the Jungle, episode 6. I'm Nick Suberling. Pleased to be with my guys this week, Anthony Cosenza and Scott Bantel. No Mickey. Mickey's too busy working hard, which we certainly understand. But, yeah, lots to get to this week. Obviously, offensively, the Bengals were pretty good this weekend. Defensively, they absolutely were for weren't for three quarters, maybe for the first quarter. But holy cow, there is a lot to digest with this squad. So if you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll be monitoring the chats all night. What's up to Antoine? Stay tuned a little bit later on for shout-outs, Antoine. So let's dive right into it, gents. I think we can all agree here that the quarterback position is settled. Like, we know that this guy can play. Like, Joe Burrow is a legit quarterback in this league and will be for years to come for the Cincinnati Bengals. What a performance he had this weekend for the Orange and Black, Anthony.
Yeah, I actually watch it with, a handful of my family members. And, my parents have watched quite a few Bengals games with us. They're not really Bengals fans. Obviously, they know that we get happy when the Bengals win, so they want them to win for that reason alone. But,
yeah.
It's funny. My mom, who, she's a good sport about watching football. My dad's a big USC guy, so she's watched a lot of football herself. But my mom even said after that game, she's like, I know that was a terrible way to lose that game, but at least you guys have a really good quarterback. And I was like, hey, thanks, Mom. Appreciate that. I love that pat on the back. But, yeah, no, they found another creative way to lose the game. But Joe Burrow's the man. He is the man. And a couple of mistakes early, but he knows how to shake things off and play very well after a poor play on his part.
Yeah, I will be I'm going to pat myself on the back now. I said 38-35 would be the score last week. So I was 2 points off, one for each team, as it finished 37-34. We can sit here all week or all night, Scott, and just sing the praises of Joe Burrow. But it's clear like they've got their guy.
Yeah, it'd be a lot more fun to do that than getting into some of the stuff we're probably going to get into.
We're saving the best for last.
Yeah, and Anthony, the only thing I disagree with you is I'm not so sure they do get more creative with these losses. It seems like the same story each week, right? They take the lead late. Joe Burrow takes them down the field, gets the lead late, and then they blow it on the final drive. So it's starting to become quite a common theme here.
Yeah, you take away that early interception. That was a bummer of a play. Right? You get down to the 1 yard line, and again, the second time this year they've gotten to the 1 yard line, and Joe Burrow's thrown an interception in the end zone. First one, not necessarily his fault against the Jaguars a few weeks ago. Sunday, probably shouldn't have thrown it towards Denzel Ward, and it gets batted in the air and picked off in the end zone. In the end, ultimately, the Bengals were able to get the ball back pretty quickly, and they were able to score a touchdown. But he did shake off the early air. And I was really impressed with his poise in the pocket, gentlemen, especially when you consider the injuries on the offensive line. Like, they had to shake up a lot of things. And there were some guys that we did not expect to see playing in this game against the Browns. And he didn't look rattled, even after getting strip sacked and sacked a couple of times by why can't I think of his name? Myles Garrett. Thank you. Still, I was really impressed with his ability to drive down the field multiple times in that fourth quarter when it was absolutely needed to score touchdowns. And he's unflappable. And that's what we have not seen at that position for 10 years.
Pretty much. And even so, I think you're probably referencing maybe the Palmer days, maybe even some of the peak Andy Dalton days, but it feels different with him under center. Even when there's a mistake, you kind of feel like, hey, they'll regroup. Aside from what happened against Indianapolis, the mistake he made at the end of the game that ended up kind of just ending the game with that interception. When he makes a mistake early on, you kind of have the feeling like, all right, he's going to rally him. And he's done it. I think I counted, Nick, in these 7 games, 3 times he's driven down for a late score to take the lead or should have given them a tie, a lead. You go Chargers, you go Eagles, you go this one. I mean, he's driving them down the field late in the game and putting them in position to tie or win games. And inexplicably, the team lets him down. Yeah, he had that interception against the Colts, so you can pin that one on him, I guess. But again, he had a 21-point lead in that one for him too, and there was a collapse there. So, other people got to step up besides Joe Burrow and a couple of wide receivers.
Yeah, and two, it was not just the end of the game. Also happened at the end of the half. Like they were able to put a touchdown on the board right there, heading into the halftime locker room. Scott, that once again he made the plays he needed to make. And what was even more impressive about this game is the fact that they lost despite not having to punt once. We didn't have to say Kevin Huber's name at all this weekend.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. And you guys, I don't know if you feel this way too, but I said it maybe after week 1 or week 2, where, this season, even after losses, I've never been angry or frustrated. I think it's because I feel so comfortable with what I'm seeing them have at the quarterback position, right? I mean, I have never felt, and even back in the Palmer heydays, I've never felt this comfortable with the quarterback in the quarterback position as far as trusting him to do what's right, making the right reads, making the right decisions, showing up in big games. I mean, even in Palmer, we still had those same questions, right? We still had the same questions about his ability to show up in big games and play big when the moments were the biggest. And we're already seeing that from Burrow, right? I mean, I can say I've never felt as comfortable and confident in a quarterback as I do Burrow, and he's a rookie, 6 or 7 games in. And I think that's why I haven't got nearly as frustrated or disappointed with this team as I have previous teams. Because for once, I feel like we know who the quarterback is, knock on wood, barring injury, for the next 10 plus years.
How dare you?
But, so I feel like all they have to do, and this may be a big if for this franchise, is put a couple. They don't need a great defense, right? They don't even need a great offensive line. I mean, imagine what this guy could do with a good offensive line. We saw it on Sunday. They're playing with 4 backups in total, if you count Redmond. And you couldn't even tell. I mean, he didn't look rattled. He didn't look worse for the wear. Imagine what he would do with a comparable offensive line and a comparable defense.
I think too, we have to give some credit, right? I don't want to give a whole lot of credit because I still think there are issues with this team ongoing at the moment, but you do have to give some credit to Zach Taylor, right? Look, Burrow's getting the headlines for all the yardage stats and the completion stats, but who's calling those plays? I mean, Taylor is calling those plays. Now, there are some questionable play calls. Like I sat there during the game, and in the fourth quarter, I told him I was watching the game with my son, and they called timeout right before that 4th and goal at the end of the game. And I kept telling him, I don't know what there is to debate here. You sneak the ball to get the first down and let the clock bleed, because you've just watched your defense for the last 3 quarters not make one single stop. Like, not one single stop. So why are you taking that chance of putting your defense back out onto the field? That, to me, and we'll talk about play calling a little bit later on, but that specific moment, gentlemen, were you okay with the pass to Bernard there with a minute 6 to go, or are you in the camp of get the touchdown, score the points versus maybe take a risk and not end up scoring if you waste too many downs?
AC, I'll let you go first.
I love the play call. To Gio, the design of it, I loved how the little stutter motion. It was a really, really creative and awesome looking play.
Did you like it at 106 though?
Well, here's the thing that to play
have been at 36.
Yeah, I mean, yes, obviously, given what hindsight being 2020, of course. But you look at what happened earlier in the game, Nick. I think when Burrow snuck that ball into the goal line for as the first rushing touchdown, They did that play twice. The first time it didn't go anywhere. And there were other times running plays that were not going anywhere on that same final drive. I mean, they tried to give the ball to Bernard, and they were just to try and mix things up a little bit, eat a little more clock, and they still were not able to get any push. So then, I mean, at some point you got to say, I mean, we feel that pretty confident in this play. We got to get the points regardless here, or we got to get the first down. I think they had an opportunity to even get a first down before scoring in that situation. So I'm fine with the play call, because I think at some point you got to be like, defense, man up. You got to get us one stop. And if you can't get us one stop and you let up the game the way that they did, you don't deserve to win. I mean, it's very simple. You got to get a stop. They had Baker Mayfield. I think it was Mackenzie Alexander blitzed him, grabbed Baker Mayfield's leg, and he ended up making an awesome play off of that. Can't get there. 2 big completions off, against Darius Phillips, and the rest is history. But I'm kind of the mindset. I love the play call. I wish they ate up a little more time, obviously. But, I mean, if you can't get a stop there on defense when you have the lead there, you don't really deserve to win.
Cody in our chat room says the call was a quarterback sneak, but Burrow audibled out of it because of the defensive look. He said it in his presser. Okay, well, if you can't get a 4th down conversion, 4th and inches on a quarterback sneak,
you don't deserve to win either.
You don't deserve to win either. Exactly. Yeah. So if it were me, by the way, I loved the play call design. I thought it was well executed. Although I thought Joe almost like he aimed it rather than threw it. Like he almost like it was like, oh man, is it going to get there? But I agree with you there, AC. I just would have liked to have seen that play call maybe made with 30 seconds left versus 106. Because let's be honest. I don't know if the defense could have held for 30 seconds. So, yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts, Scott? Do you agree with the play call at 106?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those play calls, if it works, you love it. If it doesn't work, we'd all be critiquing him for why don't you QB sneaking. Nick, I hear what you're saying with the quarterback sneak. That's what I thought they were going to do as well. But a couple of things that you got to think about is, like AC said, they had done it earlier in the game and didn't get it. At that point in time, you're working with a backup center, a backup, essentially right guard, right tackle, left tackle. It's no given. And the other thing that's not a given is who's to say as he's trying to get it, he's not falling on bodies and ends up in the end zone anyways. So I think we're armchair quarterbacking. It does come down to you still have to get in the end zone. And your defense still needs to make a stop. And I think what we're looking at here is the problem's not you scored too fast. The problem is the defense. And I know we're going to get to that later, but you can't be calling plays and trying every game, because at this point with this team, it's almost like they have to have the ball last and score last in order to win. And that
with like triple zeros,
right? I mean, yeah, you can't be asking them to play call to try to design it so that they only score with no time left, right? You got to get in the end zone and then rely on your defense. So I don't have a problem with the play call. I thought it was creative. I thought it was good. It's the thing that we keep ripping Zach Taylor for. We can't rip him now that he makes a good play call because he scored too quick.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not necessarily ripping him there. I just wish. I just wish we could have killed a little bit more clock. That was an incredibly disappointing part of that. Let's talk about the offensive line, though, right? Ashley in our chat on YouTube says it wasn't 4 backups. It was 5 third-string offensive linemen. I as much as we've killed them for the past 6 episodes, I honestly felt like they did better than I expected, right? When you have to shuffle your starting left tackle, who's your number 1 overall, or not overall, but number 1 first round draft pick from a year ago, your starting center with Fred Johnson and Billy Price, and then you lose Bobby Hart at the end of the game, and you've got to put in Hakeem Adeniji. And on the crucial plays, like the line held up, right? It wasn't like I don't necessarily think that they played poorly. I think Myles Garrett made a couple of big plays, but other than that, I genuinely kind of feel like we need to give them a little credit for the fact that with everything that happened in that game, they actually performed better than I thought they would have.
You go first this time, Scott.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. I like to think I'm fair and objective here, and I do plenty of criticizing of people, especially the offensive line. And so when they play well, I'll be the first to acknowledge it, and they did, right? I mean, that's probably the best we've seen this offensive line play, and they did it with all of those backups, all those mid-game substitutions. I mean, look, Billy Price has been a whipping boy for all of us
Sure.
since he's been drafted, but quite frankly, he played well on Sunday. I was I was surprised. I was glad to see it. I
If we have to nitpick one thing that he did, though, right? He had that low snap that AJ ended up dropping in the end zone. Again, I'm nitpicking here because I agree with you. I thought he played okay.
Yeah, it's not unfair though, because that is one of the things that he had problems with. If you remember back in camp, I think his rookie year and even his second year. But I thought Fred Johnson played pretty well at left tackle. I thought when Adeniji got in there, he did okay also. There were a lot of things about that game that were frustrating. The offensive line for once was not one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't point to that group this week and say that's the reason they lost. Whereas I think at least 5 of the losses that the Bengals or the tie or what have you could really say that was a major reason or the major reason that they lost or didn't win this game. I can't say that this week. And really that had an opportunity to be absolutely disastrous for this offense and for Joe Burrow, the way that they had to mix things up and bring guys in and all of that. Kudos to Billy Price and Fred Johnson. They both had kind of some critical penalties. I think they both had one each on that final drive. If you remember, Burrow really got fired up at Fred Johnson about the false start. There are a couple of different instances where you go, okay, there's still some issues there, and you can tell that they're backups for a reason, but the way they were thrown into that game and who they were going up against and the fact that the team went down, scored on that final drive to get the go-ahead score there. I mean, you got to give credit where it's due. And Bobby Hart, by the way, a guy I think we've all pounded pretty hard based on his performances this year. I think if you go to Pro Football Focus, that was his best career game as a pro, I think, by Pro Football Focus metrics. And, that may or may not be saying something, but I mean, sure. He graded out pretty well. And I mean, he played almost the entire game. He went out on that final drive. So, credit those guys. They played pretty well, and there were some issues. It was far from perfect, but they were definitely not the reason as to why the Bengals lost this week.
Yeah, and Anthony, one other thing on that is, one of the things that's been missing from the offense up until this point, maybe up until last week, was the deep ball. That's the one thing that we could probably criticize Burrow about. A lot of that had to do with just not having enough time. In the last 2 weeks, his line has given him time. That's one thing they've been able to add in. I think you've seen the offense start playing better because of it. I'm looking here at the stats now. They had more than 4 20-plus yard completions on Sunday. So, they gave him enough time to finally push the ball down the field, and you saw what it could do.
Yeah, protection gives guys like AJ Green a chance to get down the field. Another game, back-to-back games now for AJ Green, where you're starting to see him come to life a little bit. You started to wonder, especially early on in the game, there was a deep ball thrown into the end zone that I don't know why. Maybe I'm crazy thinking this, but it just seems like AJ Green doesn't want to elevate or go up for a contested ball at all. Like, there was a play in the end zone where all he's got to do is turn and high point the ball. Instead, he tries to catch it on the ground, and I don't know. And same thing kind of happened a little bit later on in the game when he dropped that second touchdown in the end zone. I don't know if he's scared of getting hurt or what, but like, at some point you got to go up for a jump ball and contest for something. I'm sure the coaches in the tape are looking at that going, what were you thinking here? Like, go be AJ, go high point that ball. And again, nitpicking here because I still thought he had a pretty good game, but still, there's still some question marks, AC, but he did have a pretty good game this weekend.
Yeah, I think he's got close to 180 yards the last 2 weeks. So you like to see that. The problem is this week, 7 catches on 13 targets. And that's not a good sign. And I think that's to the point of, some of these jump balls and some of these big play opportunities that just for some reason are not coming to fruition. I I think I actually said out loud on one of those end zone throws that that's a play that old AJ makes
Yeah.
in his sleep. And I think I said that out loud, and I kind of was like, well, is it because he's tentative? Does he lack the explosion in terms of being able to jump up and high point the ball like he used to? Or is it just, in some of these deep balls, he's trying to catch it in stride. He's not really getting up for the ball. Is he still trying to figure out Burrow's passes? And, the fact that AJ Green hasn't really played since early 2018. So he's probably still trying to as weird as it sounds, remember how to track the ball properly and, kind of get his eyes back to where they were, in a sense, in terms of bringing a ball down and tracking that ball out of Burrow's hands. So, it's good that there's been some positive momentum from a couple of weeks ago from the whole trade me or whatever clip that we saw. But, there's still some issues that need to be worked out. And, unfortunately for him, this has kind of been the story all year. There have been a lot of big plays that have been left out there, a lot of touchdown catches that have been left out there. And if they're going to want to win games and, let AJ be AJ, they got to figure that out, whether that's on AJ, Burrow, whatever. But I think it's kind of a combination of factors when it comes to AJ.
What's going to help AJ too is the guys like T. Higgins. Like T. Higgins stepping up and making plays. We know about Boyd. He's becoming a legit threat in the NFL. So those guys are freeing up a little bit more space for AJ as well. So, look, from what we saw a few weeks ago in Baltimore to now, like he's gotten, he's definitely, I don't want to say he's fully turned the corner, but he has looked a little bit better on the field for the Bengals. So that's a good sign. Now, in reverse, we've seen a complete do we want to call it a meltdown? Should we call it a meltdown from Carlos Dunlap? Clearly he wants to be traded. I don't think he's mincing any words. Anthony, you're a realtor, right? You know anybody that could sell somebody's house?
I am. I don't have my license in Ohio, unfortunately, but only in California.
Commish,
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe, and you never know, he might be getting traded to LA.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys make of this situation? I mean, I watched the Instagram live last week and was just like, wow, this is it. This is kind of dull. I didn't get much from it. And now we see the rotations being sent out, the meltdown on the sideline, the tweeting about putting his house for sale. Like, did he not learn from Carson 10 years ago? Like, he's not going to trade you. Mike Brown is not going to trade you. He's not going to give you what you want. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, this is disappointing to see because he's been one of those guys that both on and off the field for the franchise has been, a good dude. So it's really surprising, at least as far as the public persona that we've seen with Carlos Dunlap. I think it's surprising to see him act and behave this way. It's different too than I guess the really disappointing thing is this is a pattern with this organization with their best players. I don't know that it's necessarily the organization's fault. Maybe it's the types of guys that they bring in as their best players, but it is a pattern. Now, that being said, he's gone about this a whole different way than any of those other malcontents have. Even Cordy Glenn last year, right? We heard about it. We heard the rumors about what's going on. Dunlap's going straight to social media. And not only that, you're hearing players in his own locker room come out and be 100% against what he's doing. We're even seeing it in the comments of his social media stuff where Boyd and Mixon are calling him out. It just seems like he is being a lone wolf here, just going rogue. Rogue is like the term that I keep coming back to. I don't know what his issue is, but I don't think from what I'm hearing from other players that there's an issue in the locker room from the team perspective. It sounds like there's an issue with Carlos Dunlap.
Yeah. and in years past, we haven't seen. Granted, we didn't have social media back when Corey Dillon was doing his thing, and I'm sure Carl Pickens was doing his thing back in the 90s. Like we just didn't have that, right? So now you see this, and what was even more surprising, and maybe I guess I was a little surprised to see so many Bengals speak up on social media about not approving of what's happening, Anthony. That to me was maybe a sign that maybe Zach Taylor hasn't lost the locker room and that it's just really one guy with an issue.
So I've got a couple of different thoughts. I'm going to try and make this as coherent as possible here. It's like I've kind of got a lot of different directions here. Scott, first of all, hit the nail on the head about it being a pattern. I mean, this has been something dating back to like Lamar Parrish. He wanted out, right? And you can go all the way up until the 90s when they were losing. You had Pickens and Dillon and all kinds of different guys.
Lee Johnson, AC. Don't forget about Lee Johnson.
Oh, yeah, the big lefty.
Yeah.
Look, the one thing with Dillon that I found interesting, and there is a parallel here, I guess a little bit of a parallel. Dillon wanted out, and the Bengals had Rudy Johnson waiting in the wings, and what they were doing is they were supplanting Dillon with Rudy Johnson, who was becoming suddenly very effective, and we know the rest is history there in terms of what happened with Rudy's career, and the Bengals shipped off Dillon, and he ended up having a couple of great years with New England, but I mean, there was a little bit of discontent because Dillon, I think, kind of felt like, I've done all this stuff for the organization, now they're letting me kind of waste away, but there was a guy there that was outplaying him, quite frankly, in 2003. And so I think that's where some of that came from. This is a little bit different because Dunlap is being supplanted by guys that aren't outplaying him. And it's one thing, we can complain about Dunlap's lack of production. And I know I have this year. And really, if you go back to last year, I think he had 8 or 9 sacks last year. Go look at the games in which he had his productions. There were 3 games where he had 6.5 sacks. It was the Browns game, the Jets game, and I think against the Raiders, right? And the rest was he didn't have a sack for the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. And then he blew up against really bad teams late in the year to kind of pad his stats. Granted, there were big plays to get those wins, but regardless, I mean, it's kind of like you started to see a little bit of a tapering off of things. And my thing is this, just to kind of get to the point here. I guess from Carlos's side, he's being benched for guys that aren't producing in front of him and getting less snaps. And then you're seeing, what kind of message does that send to your locker room when at the end of the game you're not getting a pass rush? Baker Mayfield ends up getting a last-second win, and you've got guys out there really that aren't producing, and that's why you've supposedly benched Carlos. To the point about Tyler Boyd, I love the fact that he, I guess, in a way, stood up for the organization. But Carlos Dunlap's been with the Bengals for 6 more years than Tyler Boyd has. He has seen a lot of different things, and most of those years were very successful, but he has dealt with this organization for a lot longer time than Tyler Boyd has. So, I think he's seen and heard quite a bit more than Tyler Boyd has, and Boyd's in the middle of a nice contract himself, so maybe he's a little happier Dunlap is too, but I don't know, guys. It's really an irritating situation, and every team has this. You can go look at the Steelers, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. I mean, it happens. It just seems to happen a little more frequently with the Bengals, and it's a shame because, like Scott said, Dunlap is one of their best guys traditionally in the locker room, in the community, and on the field.
I get all that, but even when you're on the field, this is your chance to prove something, right?
And he's not.
He's not at all, and that's the thing that's so disappointing. Is if he was producing, I think I would maybe be a little bit more understanding. But dude, when you're out on the field, you're actually causing more issues than the guys behind you. How many times on naked boots is he pinched down the line and out of position, or just not getting to the quarterback like he used to? He's not the same Carlos Dunlap that we drafted however many years ago. He's just not. And so I don't know, for me, I don't understand why he's so upset. Right. I mean, granted, if he was out there getting a sack per game, sure. I get it then. But right now he's just not, he's a non-factor. By the way, he's not the only one on the D line, right? Non-factor, but I don't know. I thought I saw a lot more from Marcus Hunt this weekend. What does that say?
Yeah, I just want to say one additional thing, Nick. There's a comment. It looks like it's from Twitter from Hubba_29. Carlos has been on more winning seasons than Boyd. That may be playing into this, right? I mean, he saw one of the most successful runs in the organization, and now he's been a part of what's going on 5 losing seasons, and he is sick of losing. And he has a coach now that is really close to him in terms of age. And maybe they're not seeing eye to eye. There's a lot of talk of a lack of communication from both of those sides, I guess. Maybe that's an issue. And maybe he communicated a lot better with Marvin Lewis, a guy that a lot of players in that locker room viewed as a father figure type of coach. And I mean, we know Marvin had his flaws, obviously, as well. But, maybe.
No, Marvin?
I know. But maybe, I mean, I thought that was an interesting point by Hubba_29. And, that could be playing into it. He's just sick of losing. And then on top of it, he's not getting playing time and they're losing. So.
Yeah, I'm going to stand up for the organization here. A couple points on this as well is I saw on the Twitters the other day that as far as win rate goes amongst defensive linemen on the Bengals, he's like 6th or 7th. He was behind the names of these guys that we don't even know, Bledsoe. And I mean, honestly, I don't even know some of these guys' names. But you're right, Nick. I thought Marcus Hunt looked better than him. And what I'm seeing from people on Twitter that are studying the tape is that it's not just a matter of him not being productive when he's on the field. The effort's not there, right? I mean, I think that's what I'm seeing when I'm watching the game, but it's now being confirmed by people that I know that watch a lot more tape than me and watch the game a lot more closely than me, that it's not just a matter of being productive. It's a matter of he's not trying. And I'll remind you too, with Carlos Dunlap, this has always been a thing with him. Coming out of college, there was always the concern about him and his the way that he likes to take games off, take plays off. This has kind of always been something with Carlos Dunlap. And Anthony, to your point before, last year we saw who did he get his production against? That's part of it too, right? Carlos Dunlap is a good front runner. When Carlos Dunlap likes to put stats up against bad teams, when we need Carlos Dunlap usually is nowhere to be found, even on those good teams, right? There's been few times in big games against good teams where he's made the play. But the last thing I'll say is it does seem to happen to the Bengals more that you get these disgruntled players, but part of that is something that people usually don't give them credit for. It's because they keep their own guys around. And this is something that happens when players age and they don't age well. They don't like their playing time getting reduced. You see that more with this franchise because they keep their good players around for the most part. So it happens more with the Willie Andersons, the Corey Dillons, the Carl Pickens, the Dunlaps, the Palmers, these guys that sign these long second or third contracts. And that's when it starts to happen. It starts to happen when they start getting up in age and they don't want to reduce their role.
And the tape doesn't lie, right? Even if he is trying to force a trade, even if the Bengals were willing, which I don't know if they really would be, considering the way he's acted the last few days, I don't know what team out there is going, yes, let's go get him. I have a hard time seeing that. I think now, knowing how this is going to play out, if it was me, I would get what you can for him and just be rid of it. Now, I know that sends a bad. I know Mike Brown has precedent and is very much against not letting these type of situations become the norm. Like, he doesn't want to, I guess, let the players feel like they have that kind of power. Like, if they just do these types of things, they can get what they want. So for me, I don't know. What are you even going to get for him at this point? If you can get a 7th rounder, I think you'd be happy for it.
I think he's really gotten to the point of Cordy Glenn, which was, the talk last year was, if nothing else, for Zach Taylor's message to get across, you got to get this guy out of the locker room. Because what does Taylor talk about? He talks about the culture, we're building something here. This is the 2nd year in a row he's had a guy that has acted like this, that he's let hang on. He needs to get them the hell out of that locker room. and establish that this behavior is not accepted. We're building something, but it's not this. And that if you're going to act this way, even if we can't get anything for you, we're just going to get you out, because he's doing more harm than good right now.
Yeah, and that was his prime message after the game in the postgame presser. AC, his words were "stick together," and then you're reading the tweet about selling your house, and I don't know. It's hard to see Carlos sticking together with what's going on here. I have to highlight Dave Wellman in the chat room, because it doesn't happen very often in my life where somebody says that I'm right. So, Dave, thank you so much. He says, Nick's right, time to move on. This isn't going to end well, so why not just end it now while you can and get something for him?
Yeah, the barometer it may or may not be this, but I believe the Cowboys sent Everson Griffin today
The Lions,
to the Lions for I think it was a conditional 6th-round pick or something like that. I mean, when you're talking about Carlos Dunlap, one of the best defensive players in the history of the Bengals, I mean, you're talking, a late day 3 pick is what you yield for him. It's kind of like a tough pill to swallow, but he's got a big contract and he's not acting in an appealing way to the Bengals locker room. So maybe you take something like that and you just run with it and do what you can. But it's a shame. It's a shame how this is playing out for sure.
Although Antoine saying Nick is wrong, highlight that. Okay. Well, dang, Antoine, there goes your shout out tonight. I'm kidding, of course. We want to hear from you though. Get in touch with us if you're watching or listening to this after the fact. Email us insidethejunglepod@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter as well at InsideJunglePod. We've got a new iTunes review. I'm sorry, we should call it Apple Podcasts because that's what it's called now. So thank you so much for everybody who's gone out and rated and reviewed the show on Apple Podcasts. This one comes from Enon Laundry. He says, best Bengals. I can't talk tonight, guys. I'm really sorry. He says, best Bengals podcast out there. I used to listen to you all when I was overseas in 2013 through 2015. I thought it was the best then, and I still think that now. Keep shoveling. Thanks so much for the awesome Apple Podcast review, Enon Laundry. Again, if you want to review the show, head on over to Apple Podcasts and do a search for Inside the Jungle. And also, you can get subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcast, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. So, again, go check that out. All right, let's do some shout-outs, shall we? AC, you can start off. Who's your shout-out this week?
Sure. I don't know if this person said they left a review on, looks like October 11th for the show. Sam Anger from the UK. Said, as soon as I saw that you were doing a new show with the same cast, I was absolutely ecstatic. I've been a listener from the start when I was just getting into podcasts, and you were my first. Listened to every episode since you've done since the reunion, and you still do a cracking job. Strongly recommend this pod for any Bengals fan. Houday from the UK. So
where'd you see that at?
He sent it. He messaged me on Twitter with it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it was back on October 11th. It looks like. So I mean, I think it was. Yeah. He says, you guys on the pod always gives me a huge nostalgia trip and look forward to the next one. So that's what he messaged me. Yeah. Sam Anger. Yep.
Very cool.
UK. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's a shout out and a review, Nicholas.
Well done.
Yeah. I got 2 for you.
You're really good at this, AC. It's like you've really done a show or something.
Nah.
Scott, you got a shout out?
Yeah, AC is great at these shout outs. I need to model my shout outs after AC. Let's see. Well, I did want to shout out with Enon Laundry. I like the reference to Marvin Lewis. Wasn't the keep shoveling one of Marvin's season?
Yeah, I think it was one of
I
his
think that
phrases.
Was the keep shoveling, run on your
keep
own
chopping
gas,
wood or whatever.
Chopping wood, yeah. I think that was one of them. But it's a good reference to Marvin. My shout out is just, again, from last week. I know we've had him on the show a couple times. I know, Nick, we're going to have some more guests coming up in the future, but shout out again to Jeff Hobson and joining us. He's always been good to the show, been good to us personally. He's a great guy, and it was good to have him back on the show and be our first guest.
Yeah, good shout. I asked for shout outs on Twitter, and Antoine was the only one to respond. So Antoine Malone, at Antoine Malone on Twitter. Big shout out to you. Was a massive fan of the show back in the day when we were doing it. I'm glad to see he's back in the chat room tonight, even though he said I was wrong. You couldn't let me have my moment for just 2 minutes, Antoine. We've also got Jared in the chat room. Jared, he's a big Notre Dame fan. I can't remember his actual Twitter handle. I think it's at Irish Fan TD or something like that. If I'm wrong, Jared, just message me.
The Twitter GIF king, Jared.
Yes,
guy.
he is. He is. He's one guy who helped me be able to watch the Bengals games on Sundays in certain methods that maybe aren't appropriate. I'll just leave it at that. We got a lot of folks in the chat room tonight. Hubba29, Ben Reed is in the chat room as well. And of course, Ashley, we appreciate you tuning in. Dave Wellman, as always. Yeah, and Cody Toomey, he's in here tonight. We missed him last week, but he's in here tonight too. We do record the show live every Tuesday night at 9:00. We are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So if you follow us there, you'll get notifications that we've gone live. And of course, if you missed the show live, we'll always have the podcast available for you to listen to after the fact. So again, we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Let's talk a little play calling, shall we? We talked a little bit earlier in the show about offensively. There are some play calls that leave you scratching your head a little bit, but I think yes, Burrow is getting a lot of the press, and rightfully so, being a rookie quarterback with these gaudy numbers that he's throwing up. But it's clear, at least it is to me, I don't know how you gentlemen feel about this, as much flack as we give Zach Taylor, there's something working there with him and Burrow. We can't deny that, right? Yes, they're losing games, but there's at least something offensively there where you can kind of see some promise, right? I don't know if that means Zach Taylor's a good head coach. Maybe he should be an offensive coordinator. I don't know if that would ever happen. Could you ever imagine getting demoted to offensive coordinator? Anyway, but I think some credit should be thrown Zach Taylor's way a little bit. I'm not saying a lot, but maybe a little bit. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Scott.
All right, I'll go first. Yeah.
What is this?
Oh boy. Well, I said earlier in the show that I'll give credit. When I criticize someone when they do well, I'll give them credit, and I got to give Zach Taylor credit. I haven't had a problem with his play calling. Well, I didn't this week. Indianapolis, it was mainly just the one or two runs. We might be nitpicking a bit. They weren't big concerns if the defense could hold. So, Burrow is looking great, and we've got to give some credit at least to the coach for that and the person calling plays. And, I did think he got creative on the goal line. I did like that play. It worked to perfection. There was a couple other plays. I thought a couple really good screens this week that worked really well. I'm not sure what's taken so long to get those, but, maybe he's starting to come into his own. He's got a quarterback that can do more this year in Burrow than he could with Andy Dalton. He's got AJ Green back.
If only he had a running game. That's the one thing he doesn't have right now.
Yeah, but did you guys think they looked better with Gio? For some reason, I just felt like the offense moved better with him.
Go ahead,
I love
Anthony.
Gio Bernard.
I'll pass to you.
Yeah, I love Gio Bernard. And every time I love Joe Mixon too. And I love the way Joe Mixon runs. And I love, in November and December when the weather gets bad, you have a big, powerful, versatile back like Joe Mixon that you can use in crappy weather. Every so often, Gio gets propelled into like a higher profile role. Maybe they give him a couple more touches. Joe Mixon's out for 1 or 2 games in a season, and all of a sudden you go, "That's why this guy's here. That's why this guy is here. He can catch the ball well." I think he had close to 90 all-purpose yards. The go-ahead touchdown at the very end of the game, and his pass blocking skill and picking up blitzers that are way bigger than him, massive. So, if the question's about Gio Bernard, I loved what I saw in terms of that. And I think to Scott's point a little bit, I see sometimes a little bit more decisiveness in terms of hitting a hole or finding a crease for Gio Bernard than sometimes there is with Joe Mixon. Sometimes Joe Mixon kind of dances and picks and gets a little more patient. And there's pros and cons to that as well. But, I think to Scott's point with Gio, at least, I see what he's saying.
What about as far as credit to Taylor and what he's doing with the relationship with Burrow? Because clearly there's something there. I mean, look, he's got however many games where he's thrown over 300 yards. He threw for over 400 this weekend. Something's working there.
Definitely. I did a little research just for the heck of it. The Bengals last year, now granted you're talking about, Ryan Finley, Andy Dalton, and, probably not as much roster talent overall, but the Bengals last year had only 4 games in which they scored more than 20 points.
Wow.
4 games. This year alone, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 7. So, and most of
that's
those
without a
5,
preseason, by the way.
Without a preseason, and 4 of those 5 that I can tell are 30-plus points. So there's something there that is working. Zach Taylor has the quarterback he wants, and I think in terms of it's not only Zach Taylor calling better plays, but I think it's also they've designed the playbook that has elements of what Burrow ran at LSU to make him comfortable in this offense, and that's why there's a lot of drags, crosses, short and intermediate routes for these guys to catch the ball and run with it after they grab it. So, I know we bang on Taylor, and I think my main thing with it is just these really long dry spells where they go without points, and it's like drive after drive after drive. But that seemed to have been cleaned up in recent weeks. And, it's really going to show in these next 2 games against Tennessee and Pittsburgh how far he has matured as a play caller.
Yeah. Look, and again, I'm just basing my credit to Taylor on the statistics and what we've seen the last 2 weeks, really. I mean, against Indy, the number 1 defense in the NFL at the time, they were able to move the ball for a half, right? I think they kind of got conservative in the second half, and it ended up costing them. I think where we need to start seeing his ability as a head coach is making important decisions about the franchise that need to be made. And for me, it's quite clear that a change has to be made at defensive coordinator. Like, it could not be more obvious after what happened this weekend against the Browns. Look, they had the first quarter, Baker Mayfield didn't complete a pass. He was 0 for 5 with an interception. And then he didn't miss a pass the rest of the game, unless you count his spike of the ball in the fourth quarter on the final drive. That was it. He completed every single pass the rest of the game. Now, I know Lou Anarumo is not out there playing the game. I know the players have to make plays at some point, but something has to change. You gave up 37 points to the Browns over the weekend, and Baker Mayfield looked like he was an MVP. The week before, you give up a 21-point lead to the Indianapolis Colts. So for me, where we're going to see Zach Taylor, has he grown as a coach? Does he have the guts to make a change midseason when it's so evident that it needs to be made? That's where I'm going to see what we've got in a head coach. What are your 2 thoughts?
I've always been a proponent of when Zach Taylor was hired. I like the idea of a young offensive-minded head coach and a guy that came from the Rams system. I like the fact that even though Brian Callahan was inexperienced, I like for offense, I like the young, innovative guys. Right. I love that. I think they bring fresh ideas, especially when you're coming off of the Marvin Lewis regime, defensive minded head coach. And, it's just kind of a fresh start. What I wish would have happened, and I don't know why it didn't, was that Taylor followed the McVay model and brought in an experienced defensive coordinator, maybe someone that has head coaching experience. I mean, that's why he looked at Del Rio. That's why he looked at Dom Capers. That's why he looked at Dennis Allen. I would like to have seen him be able to land one of those people, because then you don't have a staff full of just basically all new people that have never held these types of positions before. And as a young head coach, you actually have maybe a little bit of a mentor, even though it's a subordinate. You have maybe a mentor on your staff that can
sounding board,
right? And Anarumo this is something that bothers me as well. Not only do you have Zach Taylor calling plays for his offensive coordinator and Callahan, on the other side you have Anarumo, and then he's got the linebackers coach apparently calling the blitz plays and other third down packages. So it's kind of like
Al Golden, yeah.
Who do you trust if you're Zach Taylor? Do you not trust any of these guys? Is that where? And if you don't, why are they on your staff? I don't really understand that. So I think we've seen what we need to see from Anarumo. Injuries and all kinds of different weird off seasons aside.
I get it,
but I mean, at some point, there's absolutely no clutch gene on that side of the ball, and they just absolutely collapse in big moments.
Yeah, I mean, AC, I agree with you completely with the need to have hired a experienced defensive coordinator, and preferably one that had head coaching experience. I think that was the biggest flaw in his putting together of a staff. Why it didn't happen, I have no idea. Like you mentioned, he did bring in Del Rio. There were some others. I think Anarumo was like the 8th guy we heard rumored interviewed for this position. So he clearly wasn't his top choice. Just hearing what Zach Taylor says throughout the week and in his press conferences, the way he talks about Lou Anarumo and the defense, I just don't see him firing him mid-season. No. I hope they don't enter next season with Lou Anarumo. I mean, at this point, right, they're 1-5-1 or whatever they are. I don't know if it matters. They're obviously not making the playoffs. Quite frankly, losses are more beneficial right now than wins, just from a draft capital standpoint. But if we don't see some improvements, I mean, I know this defense has been decimated by injuries, and it's tough to judge a guy who, really never had Reeder and Atkins on the field together. Has a Dunlap that's not trying. Trey Waynes is out. William Jackson's out. But I just don't see how you look anyone in the face on that defense bringing him back next year. I don't think it's going to happen midseason, but you can't bring him back next year.
Well, the other thing quickly, Nick, to Scott's point there, if you make a midseason change, and I see someone, I think it was Cody, that said Wade Phillips is out there.
I'd pay him what he wants.
That's not
true. I would do that. Yeah,
I would do that too.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is, if you do that midseason, you're having a completely different defensive scheme, and your personnel won't match what the coordinator is likely trying to do, because Lou Anarumo hasn't committed to a 4-3 or a 3-4. Wade Phillips is strictly a 3-4 guy, and your defense, even though you've brought in a lot of linebackers, you don't really have a ton of 3-4 strictly personnel. You've got a lot of different guys. So that's where an issue for me, making a midseason change, a drastic one like that, that's where it could really bite you. But at the same time, Nick, how much worse could it really be at this point?
Wouldn't you take a Wade Phillips who maybe is more comfortable in a 3-4, but could probably organize and get a defense together with 4-3 personnel, right? Like, he could call plays in a 4-3. Like, he could probably I would trust him with this group, with that lack of, I don't know what you want to call it, that con, if you're looking at pros and cons list, right, over what we currently have. Like, I would much rather us have Wade Phillips as a defensive coordinator, even knowing that, yes, he would prefer a 3-4 defense, but calling plays with a 4-3 roster. That's just me. I would pay the man whatever he wants right now. And he's got head coaching experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying, maybe Zach Taylor's afraid that, if you bring in somebody with head coaching experience, maybe he's hiring his replacement. If I were Zach Taylor, I would not be thinking that way. I'd be thinking, I've got to fix this defense or I will not be the head coach anymore. That's how he should be looking at it.
Yeah. I mean,
I can't disagree with bringing him in.
Yeah. Again, it's just if you go midseason or not.
We all can hope. I think I agree with you both that I don't think it will happen, but you got Tennessee this weekend, then you got to bye. If things do not get drastically better, and it's tough because obviously Tennessee is a really good football team. They be prepared to see a lot of Derrick Henry this weekend for sure. But man, something's got to change. You can't let Baker Mayfield throw 22 straight completions to end the game and end it the way that it did.
Yeah, I
you gotta
think
give.
Nick, that just goes to show though, when you don't get a pass rush, I mean, they didn't sack Mayfield once.
Not one time.
I think he got that time he got touched on that last drive might have been the only time they touched him. And you got Darius Phillips and Lucas Sims filling in. I mean, that's your reason for the completions. You get no pass rush on any quarterback in the NFL, and you're covering guys with Phillips and Sims. They're going to complete a lot of passes.
Now I'm all fired up. I need to go check my blood pressure. So we want to hear from you, though. Do you want to see a change of defensive coordinator? Email us insidethejunglepod@gmail.com. All right, it's that time of the show.
Hey, ladies, quit your babbling, because now's the time in the show when all the boys pull out their cojones and make bold predictions.
All right, thank you very much, Uncle Rob. Appreciate that. Mickey not with us tonight because he got roped into some work stuff, but he did chime in with a bold prediction. He says Joe Burrow rushes for 75 yards this weekend against the Tennessee Titans. Tough matchup. Tennessee coming off a tough loss to Pittsburgh over the weekend, their first loss of the year. They're going to be not thrilled with how that result. And then, they're going to be licking their chops coming into this game against the Bengals. So, Scott, I will start with you. Give me a bold prediction for this weekend's game.
All right. I think it's going to happen. Finally, AJ Green finds pay dirt this week. I was looking at it before the show. He hasn't scored since, I don't know which week it was, October 28th, though. Almost 2 years exactly, 2018. Wow. So, obviously he missed all of 19, but I was looking. He had 5 touchdowns in the first 4 games of 18. He has 1 touchdown in the 12 games since. So it only amounts to 9 full games, but it's 2 full years. So my bold prediction is AJ Green finally finds the end zone.
He had the touchdown in game 1 against the Chargers that was nullified by the OPI. How many times has he dropped the ball in the end zone?
And Burrow had him in that first game. I think it was the first game. He had him wide open, which
just overthrew it.
He would have walked in, but Burrow overthrew him. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one, Scott. So Scott's saying AJ Green finds pay dirt this weekend. Anthony, how about you? Give me something bold.
Joe Burrow joins the quote unquote 500 club. He throws for 500 or more passing yards in this game. One of the top NFL.
Wow.
Single game. I think this game could get out of control and will require him to pass the ball quite frequently. Coming off a 400-yard passing day, I think he could easily eclipse the 500 mark. I don't know easily, but I think it's possible.
What is I have not looked at the stats to see where Tennessee ranks in the passing defense statistical category. I'd be curious to see where they're at. Ben in the chat on YouTube says his bold prediction is less than 100 yards rushing from the Titans. Oh, that is very, very bold. Wow. I don't know if I'd go that far, Ben.
Yeah.
The Titans give up 272 passing yards a game.
Okay. So.
And they have given up 15 no, I'm sorry. They've given up 15 touchdowns. So through the air. 15
passing touchdowns.
Yep.
So have the Bengals.
Yeah. That's what I stumbled on first. I thought I was looking at the wrong team. I was like, no, nope, they have as well.
Oh, man. And I think Roethlisberger had a pretty good day against them, too. So,
wow. Believe it or not, they actually have less sacks than the Bengals, too. 7 sacks is all they got.
Wow. AC, you might be onto something. 500, huh?
Hey, broken clock's right twice a day, I guess, right?
What's the franchise record?
Is the franchise record?
No, I'm wondering what it is.
Didn't Boomer have one of those?
We'll get back to that.
Yeah, we'll have to look for that.
Ashley in the chat, her bold prediction: T. Higgins goes crazy, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wow. Oh, we got a topper. Hubba 29 says Carlos Dunlap gets a fumble return for a touchdown.
Ooh, there you go.
There is no way Carlos Dunlap is active this weekend. My bold prediction might be, that he's not active this weekend. That really even wouldn't be bold. A bolder prediction would be that he would be active playing for the Bengals this weekend. Wow, that's crazy. Dave Wellman, bold prediction. Bengals win after Margus Hunt blocks a game-winning Titans field goal. He won't need to block it, Dave, because Gostkowski is just going to miss it. Because he can't make a field goal to save his life. Man. Let's see here. Oh, Cody, in regards to the franchise record, says doesn't matter. Burrow going to break it eventually.
I did find it for us here, Nick. 490 yards, Boomer.
All right.
Like as a overtime win.
Rams.
1990 against the Rams. Yeah.
Yeah. My brother and dad were at that game.
Nice.
That was when they were in Anaheim, dude.
Is that the Bo Jackson game?
That was Jim Everett. Jim Everett.
Oh, the Rams. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. No,
And Henry Ellard and Flipper Anderson. And yeah.
but I'm pretty sure in 90 they played it in the Coliseum. Well, I guess it would have been twice that year then. That they played the Rams there and then they played the Raiders.
No, the Rams were in Anaheim then.
Oh, you're right. Good
Yeah.
call.
They weren't in
The old
Raiders played in the Coliseum though.
That's right. The Angels baseball stadium.
Yep. Yep.
Good call. My bold prediction for this weekend. Wow. Man, there's some really tough ones here. Jared with a good one. Bold prediction. Billy Price doesn't get a penalty. Okay. Let's see here. Man, that's a tough one. I will say, wow. I will say, and this is not a great bold prediction for Bengals fans, but Derrick Henry rushes for 200 or more yards.
That's very possible.
I know.
That's borderline not even bold at this point.
Yeah. Okay, what if I say no, I can't do
Bold
it.
probables.
Bold. We have a new segment called Bold Probables. Man, I don't want to go negative. Okay, all right. Man. Okay. Man, I'm struggling here.
We do this every week, Nick.
I know.
Bold predictions every week.
I can't decide if I want to go defensively. All right, here we go. The Bengals secondary records 2 or more picks.
Okay.
That's pretty bold.
Yeah.
They had 1 this weekend. Maybe I'll even step it up. I'll say 3 or more. Because I think Tannehill is going to get greedy. He's probably going to go, I'm tired of handing this ball off to Derrick Henry all the dang time. I'm going to throw it downfield. You know, those guys with talent are going to be ready to pick it off. See what I did there?
Yeah, no, we caught it. Yeah.
We don't want to waste it. Anywho, we want to hear from you Bengals fans. Oh, my gosh. Hubba in the chat says maybe this is another bold prediction of Bengals win. Let us know. InsideTheJunglePod@gmail.com. You can also send us your score predictions as well. Mickey coming in hot with a 34-24 L for the Cincinnati Bengals this weekend. So he's going for a loss for the Bengals. How about you, AC? What do you got?
I'll say 38-27 Tennessee.
All right. So another loss here. Scotty?
Yeah, I can't predict them to win this game, especially Tennessee coming off that disappointing loss against Pittsburgh. It's amazing looking at Tannehill, the season that guy's having. I don't know the Bengals can stop Henry from getting those 200 yards you predicted, Nick. But I think the Bengals can put up points. So I will go high scoring affair again, 34-31 Tennessee.
Yeah, the question is, man, you got to keep the ball out of the hands of the Titans, right? And right now, with the running game that the Bengals don't have, hopefully Mixon will be back. I'd be shocked if he was, and especially with the rotation at the offensive line, you got to figure out a way to keep the ball out of their hands. So I think I can't believe I'm going to go for a loss here. Such a bummer. I hate being that guy, but I think the Bengals lose 31-24. I think they put up points, but I think they lose by a touchdown. What's the line? Anybody know? Lots of prep work we did tonight for this show, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you.
Peeling back the curtain of
Yes.
all of the research done before tonight's show.
Cody, very much in love with Joe Burrow. How good does it feel to see him play? It gets me so excited. Well, we know what he does on Sundays. He's going for a loss of 1-7 or 1. Oh man, yeah, I hate being negative. Favored by 6. The Titans are favored by 6, according to good buddy Dave Wellman in the chat room. Is he beer run on Cincy Jungle?
He was, yeah.
Was? Yeah. I don't know why I remember that, but that was a long time ago. Anywho, thank you everybody for tuning in live tonight on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We appreciate you joining us. He timed it a long time ago. See, I didn't forget, Dave. I didn't forget. We love having you here tonight. If you joined us live, eventually we keep saying it. We will get the phone lines back up and running. We want to hear from guys like Fatal Content, and who knows, maybe John from Kentucky if he's still kicking it. Antoine wants to call in, so we're slowly but surely making it happen. We need to get more people tuned in and here joining us on Tuesday night. So if you're listening to us after the fact, or if you're watching us live, do us a favor, share this and tell people about what we're doing here on Tuesday night. So more people, the merrier, I say. All right. Final thoughts as we wrap up. Scott, I'll start with you. Appreciate you being on the show as always, buddy.
Yeah, glad we brought it back. Taking a look, I'm starting to get excited watching the way this offense is moving. Having a tough time predicting a win this week or next game against the Steelers. But, they got 5 really winnable games coming up, 3 in a row coming up with, I think it's Washington, New York, Giants, Dolphins.
We've got the Dallas Cowboys. Can't play defense.
Yeah, the Cowboys are in there and the Texans. So those are 5 games that they should have a decent chance to win.
But that's where I go back to making a change. And I don't want to interrupt you, but like if they can make a change now at defensive coordinator, maybe they can flip the script. And who knows, like if they could win 5 of those games, shockingly enough, they might still have a chance for some sort of wild card spot.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, Nick.
Hey, I'm trying to be positive after picking a loss here. Dang it.
Yeah, but either way, I do think I'm seeing signs of life with the coaching staff, at least the offensive side. I'm liking what I see. They're building on the offense. Yeah, that's all. That's really all I got. Sorry, Nick.
No, you're good.
I ran out of last thoughts there.
Appreciate you being on the show. All right, AC, you got any final thoughts? DJ Cosenza, the background king.
First of all, I gotta let Cody know he's talking about being one of the first on the Burrow train. I want Cody to admit that I was also right about Justin Herbert being pretty good. So
having a good year,
Cody. If you want to admit that, my friend, you go ahead and you do that. But the other final thought for me is it's going to be a very interesting week after, depending on what happens Sunday, because you then have the trade deadline coming up after the bye week for the Bengals. And then you've also got, if the Bengals get shellacked this week, what happens to the coaching staff? What happens to this team? Going into a bye week, is that when a move is made? But, like I said, trade deadline is coming up after this game. So going to be an interesting couple of days after the Titans game.
Cody says he never hated Herbert. He just didn't like him with this franchise.
Okay.
Plus, the Bengals have a bad history of drafting Oregon quarterbacks, right?
One.
Just the one, and that's all you need to have. Appreciate you as always, buddy.
Thank you, Nick.
My thoughts this week. We missed you, Mickey. It's not the same doing the show without you. You always bring some solid points, and I'm sure you wanted to just fume after what you saw over the weekend against the Browns. We certainly missed you, buddy. Hopefully we'll catch you next week. Next you got the bye week after Tennessee, and then I think they got the Steelers, right? So
Yep.
yeah, that's going to be
Yeesh.
that might be the perfect time to make the change. Catch the Steelers off guard because they're not going to know what to plan for defensively. Although won't be much. Just turn around and hand the ball off, right? I can't believe how it's amazing. I used to be so positive, and I don't know what just happened tonight. Maybe I need to eat dinner. I think that's what it is.
It could be that shitty Michigan hat you got on.
It's not a Michigan hat. It's a Moeller hat.
That's a Michigan hat, Nick.
It's a Moeller hat. Michigan does not have the shield. It's a Moeller hat. You think I would wear a Michigan hat? I'm a Notre Dame fan.
I don't know.
I'll get you
I
some
don't know.
gear, Nick.
Although I think we went 6 years without a curse word on the podcast, and now I got to edit one out. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Oh, that's podcast safe.
Is it okay? Well, again, gentlemen, I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in live tonight on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It's been a blast talking Bengals. We keep saying it every week. I'm glad we brought the show back. It's been a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to doing these more and more over the next couple of months. All right, for Scott and Anthony, I'm Subes. Hoo day, everybody.
Who dey?
Who they?